Have you ever thought about how time itself could be a sacred space? Well, in Judaism, it absolutely can. From a weekly 25-hour pause built for rest and connection to an entire year structured around reflection and celebration, Jewish traditions are really designed to shape faith, family, and community. So let's dive in and see how it all works. And that, right there, is the key idea to hold on to. These aren't just some dusty rituals from a textbook. No way. They are living, breathing practices that connect the past to the present, shaping Jewish identity every single day. Okay, so here's our plan. We'll start with the very foundation, then move through the rhythm of the year and life's biggest milestones. We'll also see how these traditions pop up in just, normal daily life. And finally, we're going to ask the big question: why have they endured for so long? So what are these traditions actually for? Well, you can almost think of them as the operating system for a community. They're the practical tools that strengthen family bonds and pass core values and history from one generation to the very next. There is no tradition more central to Jewish life than Shabbat, seriously. In a world that just never ever stops, it offers this sacred, intentional pause, a true gift of rest from all the chaos. And the timing itself is really significant. This weekly observance carves out a very distinct 25-hour period that's dedicated entirely to rest, to spiritual connection, and to family. It creates this clear boundary between the sacred and the everyday. And Shabbat is welcomed through a whole series of beautiful, intentional actions. Families light candles, they share these special meals with braided challah bread and wine, and maybe most importantly, they set aside all forms of work. And these aren't just rules. They're designed to create this tangible atmosphere of peace and holiness. This right here gets to the absolute core philosophy of Shabbat. It isn't just about not working, it's about actively making time holy, elevating a 25-hour period from the ordinary to the truly sacred. Okay, so beyond the weekly rhythm of Shabbat, the entire Jewish year is structured by these really powerful holidays. Each one marks a moment for remembrance, or reflection, or celebration, creating this amazing annual cycle of meaning. Now, the spiritual peak of the year is known as the High Holy Days. It all kicks off with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. It's often celebrated with the sound of a shofar, that's a ram's horn, and sweet foods like apples dipped in honey. That leads into 10 days of awe, which all culminate in Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, a solemn 25-hour fast dedicated to prayer and deep introspection. Next up in the cycle is Passover, or Pesach. This is the holiday that commemorates the biblical story of the Israelites' liberation from slavery in ancient Egypt. It's a foundational narrative of freedom and justice in Judaism. So during Passover, history becomes tangible through this ritual meal called the Seder, and every single food on the plate tells part of the story. The unleavened bread, matzah, represents the haste of the escape. The bitter herbs, they recall the hardship of slavery. It is, quite literally, a history lesson you can taste. This number, 8, is absolutely central to Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. But what's it all about? That number represents the 8 days of Hanukkah. The holiday commemorates this moment of incredible resilience when, after the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem, a tiny one-day supply of oil miraculously burned for 8 full days. It's a celebration of light overcoming darkness and the enduring strength of Jewish identity. So, we've seen how Jewish tradition marks time on the calendar, week by week and year by year. But it also sanctifies the key moments in an individual's personal journey, marking the passage from one stage of life to the next. And this whole journey of responsibility, it starts really early. For boys, the Brit Milah on the 8th day of life signifies entry into the covenant with God. Then, around age 13, the bar or bat mitzvah is a huge coming-of-age ceremony. It marks the moment a young person formally accepts their religious obligations within the community. All right, so we've looked at the weekly and yearly cycles and the major life milestones, but Jewish tradition also seeks to elevate the everyday, to transform these kind of mundane activities into moments of real mindfulness and holiness. One of the most well-known of these daily practices is kashrut. That's the set of dietary laws that define which foods are kosher, or fit to eat. But it's about so much more than just food. It's about bringing intention and holiness to the simple act of eating, multiple times a day. So some of the core rules you might have heard of include abstaining from pork and shellfish and never mixing meat and dairy. For an observant Jewish person, these practices are more than just rules. They're a form of spiritual discipline, a constant, practical reminder of their faith and their connection to tradition. In a similar way, the concept of tzedakah totally transforms the act of giving. See, the Hebrew root of the word means justice or righteousness. So this reframes charity not as just a voluntary act of kindness, but as a fundamental obligation, a duty, to create a more just and compassionate world. So, after all this, we come to the big question. Why does any of this matter? I mean, how have these ancient practices survived for thousands of years, through persecution and exile all across the globe? Well, the answer really lies in what they do. First, they unite communities around a shared calendar and a shared set of practices. Second, they act as this amazing vehicle to transmit core values like justice, freedom, and family to each new generation. And finally, as we've seen, they sanctify time, giving deeper meaning to the week, the year, and an entire lifetime. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world that prizes speed, distraction, and constant change, these ancient practices offer a pretty powerful model for how to find meaning, build a resilient community, and create intentional moments of peace. They show us that sometimes the most profound answers aren't found in what's new, but in what endures.